Well, it's Tuesday, and that means that we're still hating to paint, or should I say having some sort of love-hate relationship with painting. This week we're going to be looking at rattle cans, spray cans, paint that comes in those wonderful little shaker cans that just spray out of a nozzle. As a sort of general rule, I've always thought, well, avoid using these things whenever possible because, they don't produce the best surface and so on. But there are a lot of projects where this is going to be the appropriate thing to use. For example, the gas pump outside Garage Mahal here. I'd be loath to sit out here with my airbrush trying to paint this thing. You need to use a spray can when you need to move a lot of paint quickly. And that's just a thing that comes up all the time, and it even comes up quite often when you're building models. Case in point is weathering the rail for the railroad. We have the large-scale railroad that goes both inside and outside. And if you follow the channel, we use Yagas Creek track exclusively. The inside part is, for the most part, hand spiked on wooden ties, and then the outside part is just their flex track. It's laid on plastic ties. And it doesn't look very good if the rails are just silver, so they need to be weathered. And the only way to really do that efficiently is to spray paint them using an appropriate color paint. So on the outside sections, I just go ahead and lay the track where it's going to be and then mask off the areas that I don't want to have paint on them, and then come through with a rattle can of a rusty color paint and just spray paint the edges of the rail here, the sides of the rail, and then come back and clean the top off while the paint is still somewhat soft. Just take a little bit of, I just use mineral spirits and just wipe off the top of the rail and clean the paint off the top, leaving it on the sides. Hopefully the masking tape has prevented it from getting all over the ties. Now I could do this with an airbrush, but I'd be out here for days doing it instead of hours. I suppose I could sit here with a brush and do it, but the quick and efficient way to do this, and the way that's going to produce the best results, is to just simply use a rattle can. Get a can of spray paint from Walmart and paint the track. One thing to note here is that even though I masked off the area around the ties, I knew that there would be a certain amount of overspray that would just get onto the roofing material here, and I'd have to mask off for 5 feet in all directions if I wanted to avoid getting overspray on things other than just the ties, which I didn't want to do. So I just accepted the fact that there was going to be a small amount of overspray underneath where I'm going to put down the ballast for the track and so on. When I was painting the gas pump outside, I masked off for about 3 feet maybe, all the way around the gas pump, thinking that would be adequate. And yet to this day, you can see the edge of where the newspapers ended around the pump, and there's a slight pink haze on the driveway just outside of that, because the overspray from a rattle can really goes off in all directions and for quite some distance. So that's warning number one when you're using rattle cans, is they're going to produce a tremendous amount of overspray that you cannot control. For that reason, we never paint models indoors when we're using rattle cans. We don't use the paint booth because there's going to be overspray settling on everything inside the garage. So we always take the work outside, set up a folding table, and we've got a cardboard box and whatnot that we can set things up in to use as sort of a temporary paint booth outside, where we can use the spray can outdoors where the overspray isn't going to damage anything inside. So rule number one is beware of your overspray, or should I say be aware of your overspray, because it's going to go everywhere. And by everywhere, I also mean it's going to end up going right up your nose and down your throat and into your lungs. So it's smart to wear some sort of mask when you're using this.
You can use those old masks left over from the pandemic that we have on hand instead of using them for mouse hammocks.
Yeah, I think we have a few hundred of those still lying around. Next up, let's talk about the quality of the paint. There's that old adage that says garbage in, garbage out. Well, if there's garbage going into the spray can, there's going to be garbage coming out of the spray can. You need to spend a little extra money and make sure you're buying a high quality product, because there's some really miserable stuff on the market that comes in rattle cans. So what we can see here are two different brands of paint. On the left, one of the worst brands that I've worked with, the Rust-Oleum Satin. Rust-Oleum makes some pretty good paint, but they also make some stuff that's, well, less than awesome. And the satin protective enamel, we've just had no end of trouble with it. That's not to say we don't use it, but it's just problematic. And then on the right, the Vallejo, which is probably the best paint I've ever used that comes in a spray can. Next up, let's talk about the nozzle. If the nozzle on the spray can isn't a good nozzle, it's going to spit and sputter, especially if you've already used the can and it's got some paint in it, which is typical. And the next time you go to use it, it wants to spit and create no end of grief because the nozzle is partially plugged up, or in some cases completely plugged up. So you can see in this picture, there's a plastic bag there full of different nozzles. I just buy all these nozzles off of Amazon so that I can hope at least to always have a brand new nozzle on the spray can every time I'm going to use it. Test the nozzle first to see if it's going to work correctly, but if it's plugged up, there's no saving it. If it's sputtering and spitting, it's just going to ruin your work. And the only fix that I have found for that is throw the nozzle away and put a new one on. And these bags of assorted nozzles that you can buy on Amazon is one way around that. So while we're talking about nozzles, it's also necessary to make sure you have the right nozzle for the work that you're doing. Some nozzles are designed to move a lot of paint very quickly. Other nozzles are designed to do finer work and they don't move nearly as much paint. So depending on what you're painting, you may want a nozzle that's going to move a lot of paint, if you're painting the gas pump, for example, or you may be doing finer work and you want a nozzle that's not going to produce as wide a pattern, isn't going to move nearly as much paint. Typically, of course, you're going to get the nozzle that you get. The satin Rust-Oleum here is designed to move a tremendous amount of paint because I guess the assumption is that you're painting your lawn furniture or something. So it may be exactly the nozzle that you want. It may be a nozzle that's moving way too much paint and it's making it difficult to do what you're trying to do. If you have that assortment of nozzles that you can buy from Amazon, maybe you can find a nozzle that's more appropriate. But more often than not, it comes down to buying the proper paint can nozzle combination in the beginning, making sure that you're getting the right product for what it is that you're going to be doing. One of the great things about the Vallejo paint is it comes with two different nozzles and you can switch those out. One is for doing fine work, one is for doing larger work that moves a lot more paint. The larger one having sort of a fan shape to the nozzle as well. So this is great. It gives you a chance to pick the nozzle that's going to work best for what you're painting. Another great thing about the Vallejo is the top of the can is a sample of the paint that's actually in the can. You're not just sort of guessing at the finish or the color based on the plastic color of the cap, for example. You can see right there what's in the can, an exact swatch of the paint that's in the can. And that's really a nice feature. Vallejo is best known for their water-based acrylic paints that come in the little teeny bottles for airbrushing or brush painting. But what comes in these spray cans is typical of what you would find in any spray can. It seems at least to just be an oil-based enamel. Next up, test everything. Test the paint that you're going to use before you use it. You need to know if the nozzle is clear. Even a brand new nozzle may be malfunctioning. Been there, done that. It may be that the paint itself is not good. So shoot some paint onto a test object. The thing that most people like to use for testing is a white plastic spoon. It's plastic, so you can see if it's going to attack the plastic. It has a curved surface, so you can see the gloss or satin nature of it, which is difficult to see on something that's flat. But on the back side of the spoon, the curved side of the spoon, you can easily see just how glossy, satin, or flat your paint is. Okay, let's shoot some paint. We're going to start by mixing it as best we can by rattling the can. The little metal marble in there is going to stir the paint. You could sort of tell when it's ready to shoot because the marble is moving around very easily. You can tell that the paint inside has thinned out quite a bit. Always start by shooting a couple of blasts off to one side to make sure that the nozzle is clear and everything's working. Okay, let's start shooting some color onto our test object here, which is this Coke bottle. Never start with the nozzle pointed directly at your model. Always start with it pointed off to one side. Keep the nozzle moving at all time. Never stop, and never reverse direction with the nozzle pointed at your model. All of those things can build up a thick area and possibly even create a run. I'm shooting here that Rust-Oleum satin that I showed you earlier. As I've said, I've had no end of grief with this particular style of paint. It's very affordable, but what difference does it make if it doesn't work very well? And in this case, I was having a lot of trouble getting good coverage on here. I'm putting on several light coats and trying to allow it to set up between the coats, but it doesn't want to set up. It not only doesn't set up very quickly, in this particular case, it never set up at all. It remained sticky for hours. Also notice that it's not going on with a very fine mist. It has an almost granular texture to it. And after applying 3 coats and getting reasonably good coverage, you can see that granular texture is creating a somewhat orange peely finish that on a miniature or something I would not like. I suppose for your patio furniture this would be fine, but not for building models. It has way too much texture to it. And as it happens, the paint never set up at all, so 2 days later it was still sticky. Don't know why the paint was bad, but the paint was bad, so we just threw it in the trash. Now let's try Rust-Oleum Camouflage. It's a very similar color to the one we just put on. This is what I use to weather the rail outside. I've had really good luck with this. It's part of a brand that I call the 2X Ultra Cover, and I think that's a better paint. But I've had really good luck with the Rust-Oleum Camouflage colors. In this case, it's a flat finish. The other one was said to be a satin finish, and then of course they also make gloss colors. But for weathering and that sort of thing, and for most of my projects, I use flat finish paint. So I turn the bottle around and I'm shooting some of this camouflage color on the back side of the bottle. And right straight away, I can see I'm getting much better coverage with the paint. I let it set for about 2 minutes is all, and it glossed off. All of the gloss disappeared and it turned flat. So I followed that up with a second coat. And the second coat pretty much covered the bottle, the writing on the bottle, and made it look just fine with just 2 coats of paint on here. It has, I believe, the same nozzle that comes with the other paint, which is an acceptable nozzle. Boy, does it moves a lot of paint, and in this particular case, that's what I want. And when I'm painting rail, that's also what I want. But it's moving enough paint that it isn't something you'd want to use for fine work, I don't think. Within just 2 minutes or so, the gloss has completely disappeared. It has glossed off, as they say. And now we can see the flat finish on here, and it's a really nice looking durable finish. If we compare the finish here of the flat camo paint on the right to the satin finish on the bottle to the left, which, like I say, never dried, you can see that there's a lot of difference in the orange peel quality to it. Of course, the glossier nature of the satin finish paint betrays that a bit more. But also, like I say, it never did really turn satin because it never really dried. This also shows the need for testing everything. I would never shoot a spray can onto anything important before I shot it onto a couple of test spoons, or in this case, test Coke bottles first, just to see what it's going to do. And this is one of the most difficult things, I think, about spray cans, is getting a decent finish. Most rattle cans want to produce a more orange peely surface like this. The more quality paints produce a smoother, more even finish, and a lot of the cheaper paints don't cover all that well, and they produce a much more granular orange peel surface like this. And so here's our Coke bottle the next day in the paint booth under some proper light. And you can see it's really good coverage. The lettering on the label is completely obscured. Really nice looking finish on here. This, I would say, is a pretty decent paint, where some of these rattle can paints just aren't. In fairness, the satin finish is a more difficult finish, and the most difficult finish of all to achieve with a spray can is a gloss finish. But that's a subject for a whole other day, because gloss paint is very difficult to apply. They also offer the 2X in a satin finish along with the camo finishes, and had pretty good luck with this. Not as good luck as with the flat finish on the camo paint, but not bad. But for the most part, I guess you could say you get what you pay for. A cheaper paint from Walmart, like the Rust-Oleum Satin over here, not so good, not good at all. The Vallejo, which is more like $12 a can, is a very, very good paint. But it seems like the best paints are the ones that we get at the hobby shop. The Testors spray enamel here has been around, since the 1960s. It seems I've been using this forever. It's available mostly in gloss colors. Again, gloss is a much more difficult thing to achieve and a subject for a different day. But I've had pretty good luck doing gloss with the Testors spray enamel. Testors also makes two different clears, a high gloss clear and a flat clear that they call dull coat. And these are absolutely awesome, but they are not enamels. The other paints are enamels. These are a spray lacquer, so they may attack your underlying paint or your plastic. You have to go kind of easy with a spray lacquer, but boy, these are an amazing product. I've gone through so much Testors dull coat over the years. It's just awesome. Where it's a lacquer, you could potentially run into a problem with it attacking your plastic or your underlying paint. Always a good idea to test if you can find a way to test before actually shooting it. Tamiya makes some of the best spray cans available, including what I think is the absolute best surface primer. I use a different paint in my airbrush, but if I just want to put a rattle can primer on something, this is the product right here. It's absolutely awesome. Well, let's move on to airbrushes next week. For doing most of my work, I'm using an airbrush because you can get much finer results than you can with a spray can. But that's not to say that spray cans don't have their uses, and for certain models, it may be the only product that you would use. Believe it or not, the reason I have 4 different airbrushes is each one serves a very specific use in modeling, and we'll get into that when we start talking about airbrushes. But for now, it's time to move on. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the upcoming blue button. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and Karen and I will see you here on Sunday with something fun. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.